Welcome to Gen Z Hoops, the Gen Z basketball, coaching, and sports business show. On this podcast, you'll learn from professional players, coaches, and executives from all over the world and see the court in a brand new way. And now, joining you courtside, your Gen Z host, John Hartofilis.
Hey, Sam, what's going on?
What's going on, bro?
Doing great. Really excited to have you on the show. It's funny. I never really met you before and didn't even get to talk to you that much with everything going on, whether it's a Mastery Hoops in Miami or with the clinic that you had last week in New York City. But I had to reach out and get you on the show because me being a photographer myself, or really trying to do that for the teams I coach or whatever that might look like, I really respect everything you do. So I really, especially how the pictures came out from some of those clinics, I'm like, I had to have you on.
Thank you, bro. I know we didn't get to talk as much, but I did see your episode with Drew. So I knew of you. You look familiar. It was a lot of chaotic things. Everybody was talking to Drew. You know how that can get.
I was too busy giving Drew the socks, which you're going to get next time I see you.
Yeah,
the socks.
Kid, yeah.
It's hard for you to forget the guy that gave Drew a pair of socks. But it's funny, when I gave him those socks, I loved it because the video of me giving him the socks, you see like a wave of people kind of crowding him, and then I just come out with the socks. It's kind of like the way like Kobe was in China, like just a swarm of people. It's kind of funny how that stuff kind of happens. But yeah, I mean, so it's kind of crazy. Just like, the last 2 weeks have been, I mean, for me, it's been crazy. And I was only in those two places. You've been in like, I think it's 7 flights in the last 9 days. Like, where have you kind of been?
Ooh, okay. So I think it was about 2 weeks ago. Yeah, about 2 weeks ago, I went on 7 flights in about 5 days or something like that.
5 days? Wow.
It was more flights than actual days traveled.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was crazy. And then obviously a lot of that has to do with the Gymshark clinics that Drew's been hosting. And obviously he just partnered with Gymshark recently. So that had a lot to deal with, but the NBA season's coming now too. So I expect to be traveling even more. So
you're going to be doing a lot of that. And I mean, the one way I could describe that is just epic. Like just what you're doing, all this travel. I mean, I've been kind of getting a little taste of it now post-COVID, where I'm kind of doing a little more travel. And it's just so much fun. And I mean, obviously anyone that follows you, whether it's in a lot of your captions or in the tattoo on your chest, right? It's do epic things. Can you kind of tell us a little bit of I mean, and you're doing it right every single day, every step of the way. I mean, whether it's the fact that you just work in basketball to begin with, or like actually what you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit about what that maybe means to you?
Yeah, I mean, I got this tattoo. Kobe was my influence in all of this and how I started out in this industry. And when I wanted to pick up a camera, I first started editing Kobe videos when I was, I want to say 13 years old. And I kind of just picked it up as a hobby, and it was a very silent passion. And I remember I created my first Kobe video when I was around 13, 14, when YouTube was not as nearly as popular as it is today. I put it out there and I had like 500,000 hits in a year. So that passion has kind of just led me to where I am today. I've always believed that your silent passions is what you're meant to be doing in your life. And I truly believe everybody has a silent passion, but they get so deterred away because it's easier to sign off on the dotted line making money. Whereas a silent passion, you can't make money right away. You got to earn it. You got to keep working for it. So Do Epic Things is a testament to my beliefs and to my utter core. And I got it imprinted on my chest because that's something that Kobe wrote to me prior to his passing, about a year before his passing. And I was lucky and fortunate enough to be around him 5 or 6 times. And to kind of hear his wisdom really touched me. And yeah, I'm kind of built on those two things.
And I love that, because especially considering it's easy to call what you're doing now epic, but I even think that when you first started being 13, 14, making highlight videos, that's epic. Maybe everyone around you didn't think that way. And I'm really being a passion that maybe no one really got to see, but you still doing it.
Yeah, like I try to talk more and more about this, but when you're a young kid and you have this silent passion, it's not saying that you're any better than people around you, but you feel a certain energy, like you don't want to brag, you don't want to show off. And even if you do show off or brag, it's usually to your parents first, right? And my parents had no idea what video editing was content. I didn't even know what content was when I was 13. I had no understanding of the word content, it wasn't even glorified as it is today. And I remember telling my mom, telling my dad, and they just thought it was cool. They just thought, oh, that's neat, like typical responses. So nobody was propelling me and getting me into that direction of like, oh my God, you should pursue this, because there was no really prominent careers in that time. There was movie editors at the time, but it's just weird that the day and age of content now to where it was 15, 10, 20 years ago. But yeah, I just kept it to myself, kept it to my core. I never really bragged about it. It was the weirdest thing because it went all the way to high school. I made Kobe video after Kobe video, and they were getting a lot of views at the time. I think I had a cumulative 2.5 million views after like 13 videos. So it was weird because high school, I was very like motivated, and I really followed Kobe's career to the core, and he was very motivational to me in my life, just kind of proving the doubters wrong, proving the critics wrong and all that stuff. But it was just really hard to share your passion with people who didn't thoroughly understand it. But unknowingly, I was working towards my 10,000 hours without even knowing what I was doing. So that was kind of neat to me, what I'm doing now. I'm 31 years old and I've been doing this since I was 13. So
that's crazy thinking about how it's just a constant process. And you probably didn't even know you were doing it, but you were. And
No.
I relate to that a lot because when I was middle school, high school, I'd make these highlight tapes for my favorite players, and everyone around would be like, oh, like you make basketball, that's cool. But now, I mean, that's kind of that background's what's got me doing this show. So what was that for you where you realized, well, you maybe got good at editing and you realized you had really had something going there?
Man, but just to that point where you just said, like, it's like when you mention it to your friends, it's such a different energy because like they see how cool it is, and they might be your closest friends, but it's like a certain energy, a certain feeling. I always use this analogy, like players would always talk about Kobe Bryant's crazy workout stories, like they would walk in the gym and Kobe Bryant's in a sweat at 4 a.m. It makes you feel different about yourself because you're not doing it. You know what I mean? That's how I felt because I was doing all these weird things at a young age and I couldn't share it, but I just wanted to chase so to speak, a greatness and tried to kind of emulate what Kobe was doing in terms of just working hard. So just to speak up on that, I kind of forgot the question. I wanted to go off on that because I never really get to touch too much about, growing up with my passion. I always kind of flash forward to my kind of redemption story. And to the question I think you asked is like, how did I get to where I am now, basically?
Yeah, more about like how maybe with that switch term where, you know what, this could be a long-term thing, but I do love, but I want to stay where we are now because I love that idea of really everyone like really having like that being your passion, yours alone, and you knowing that you loved it. And like for me, I'd always say to myself, like I'd go to places, and my cool thing was that I had this YouTube channel, I was doing all this stuff, and no one else really vibed with that exactly. No one else really got it. But to me, it was cool. And now everyone's just like, oh, great show, great this. Oh, you're talking to all these cool people. At the start, 13, 14, 15, when you're a little more insecure, it's a little bit tougher to deal with that when you're not getting that approval maybe from everybody else. And I know you kind of relate to that.
Yeah, and it deals with my existence to this day because like it was a lonely road. I'm sure you can attest to that too. Not many people understanding you and your passion. So I think that's very difficult to go through as a kid, especially if you're dealing with family issues or other issues in your life. And for me, I use that as more therapy, like editing. It just kind of took me away from all my problems, everything that was kind of going wrong. I just was always just on the computer editing at night, finding the best song to put to a track. So yeah, I mean, I've been working at this since day one. So it's kind of cool to see how people can relate to content now, can relate to original content that people just keep scrolling on Instagram, and then when they stop, they're looking at a video, they're seeing the visuals, they're seeing the photos. Everybody kind of has this vocabulary now where they understand what people are creating now. So it's pretty cool.
So, and you're talking about, right, I mean, it's this build up, right? Like maybe starting a little bit slower, and then you're really starting to realize that you're really good at this. And I saw the post you made about talking about when you met Kobe and you got to videotape Kobe for the first time. You're like, I could put the camera down right now. Like, I could retire right now because I did it. Would you still say that that's kind of, I mean, would that kind of be like the pinnacle from a kid you got to record your favorite player?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I wanted to meet Kobe. Like that was my dream. I can't tell you how many people look me in the eye, close family members, friends, teachers, everybody's telling me that it was such a lofty goal. Like the chances of you actually having an intimate sit down one-on-one or even talking to him or shaking his hand or getting an autograph on your book, like it was 0 to none. Like people doubted my aspirations in that regard. regard of meeting my idol, the person that kind of gave me the gift and the passion to do this. So when that moment happened, I remember like it was just, I was in shock that he was right next to me and I was filming, doing what I loved. I had my camera filming Jason, filming Drew, and filming Kobe. It was very heart-wrenching and like an achievement. It wasn't even an achievement. It was more like, okay, whatever you want to say about God, whatever you want to say about manifestation or believing or having faith, I think everything kind of entwined and came together. And I really believed in that second, like, okay, if you really, really want something bad enough, you just have to work every single day. And no matter how much you work, no matter how much you believe, no matter how much you have faith, if you don't have those things, it's going to be hard to manifest your dreams. So as long as you have those things, if you keep doing it consistently, you're only going to improve your chances of meeting a Drew Hanlon or meeting your mentor, which is going to take you this opportunity, take this opportunity if you keep working hard. So that's how I looked at it. So it was very rewarding to have the man who gave me my passion be right next to me. So it was really cool. I remember when the workout was done, I wasn't going to ask for a photo out of respect, but Drew was like, listen, Kobe, like Sam's like your biggest fan ever. I have to get a photo of you guys. So Drew took the photo, and I mean, you can see the photos written in my eyes. I'm like smiling like a little kid. So
man, it's a huge moment. I think about it all coming together. But the biggest takeaway I took from that, especially, was that it's a constant thing, right? And that's something that Kobe would talk about all the time. Drew mentioned a lot too in terms of purposeful work, but not purposeful, right? But also the fact that we're doing it all the time. It's consistent. We're not taking days off. It's a constant process. I mean, one of the interesting things that Drew mentioned that this story was, he was talking about putting your foot down. That was his whole. It was a basketball. Drew was giving us the basketball lesson, but he was saying how Kobe was like, oh, I don't lift my foot, and then Drew showed him the video, and you were behind the camera like, don't correct Kobe, don't correct Kobe, you don't correct Kobe. Like, what was that like? I mean, that must have been crazy for you too. You're like, oh wow, like everyone learns everyone's learning every day. Everyone's kind of getting better every single day.
Yeah, Kobe, when we were doing, that workout with Jason and Kobe, it was interesting to hear him speak and hear him teach, because he had it in him to teach the game. You know what I'm saying? Because I've been around Drew and I'm very biased. I think Drew's the best in the world. I think he will continue to showcase why he's the best. He's only 32 years old, and he's going to keep even getting better and better. When the books are all said and done, he's going to be up there in terms of player development. I'm biased, of course, but I truly believe that in my utter will that he will be the greatest to ever to do it. Just because he was able to build players from the ground up. Nothing was ever given to him. He had to really, like, I'm not saying that he made Bradley Beal or made Jason Tatum, but he played a significant part into their younger development. And he always says all the time, would Brad and Jason been pro without me? For sure. 100%. I agree with that. But I think it's a give and take, and it's a balance of, being there at the beginning and still being with those guys' career towards the end. So I kind of went off topic there, but sorry about that.
Well, but it's important. What you're talking about is important, right? The idea of, and whether it's loyalty, whether it's sticking with someone throughout the entire time. And I think what's super impressive is the fact that they were 13, 12, 14 years old, however old it was, coming to Drew, and there was that whole process. And that maybe is a good launching point as to when did you maybe first meet Drew? And because I mean, right, that's been a super consistent thing, and maybe seeing whether it's these players go over time or your skills go over time. I mean, it's been everything's kind of goes hand in hand together.
Yeah, I know I keep going off topic. Sorry about that. But I met Drew. Obviously, you've heard in other podcasts, and people have kind of heard my story and over again. But I used to be a janitor 8 years ago, cleaning women's toilets for a living. Drew always gives me a hard time about my life story because it's pretty crazy, and it takes like 2 hours to talk about. But I had a lot of bad things happen to me in a pretty significant span when I was a junior in college. So college didn't work out for me. I was trying to be a professional soccer player during the first kind of ladder of my life. And I was very serious, and I kind of took that motivation side from Kobe, trying to prove people wrong because I came from a small school. I was able to play Division II for 2 years, and then I walked on for Division I for 1 year. But unfortunately, I got hurt, sports hernia. I ended up getting walking pneumonia, and then I kind of got kicked out of school for financial irregularities with my paperwork. So there's just been a multitude of stuff that's happened to me, and that happened to me for about 12 months. But then with every terrible, harmful, chaotic story, there's always a redemption. So I was able to kind of redeem myself a couple years later, and I met Drew in 2014 when he had Andrew Wiggins and Zach LaVine, and I was interning for P3, peak performance facility in Santa Barbara, which a lot of basketball people know, where, Paul Fabritz, I can't even say his last name, but he's kind of doing what P3 kind of started, but now like anybody can do what P3 is doing, because you get a book, you get the knowledge, you get the force plays, you get the studying, like anybody can do that now. So it's pretty cool, the progression of what the science is able to help with the basketball players now. But that facility I was working at, I was not making any money for about a year and a half, 2 years. I created my own internship there. And then when Drew came in 2014 for pre-draft for Andrew Wiggins and Zach LaVine, the rest is just history. As soon as I met Drew, I was like, damn, I'm gonna work my ass off. I'm gonna just do whatever I can and help this man and hopefully get a job from this man.
And it all worked out. And what I think is so cool about that is, I mean, whether it's everyone our listeners, or I'm sure you yourself look at that as a blessing, or how everything maybe played out as a blessing. But at the same time, you have to put a lot of work in those unseen hours to make that a reality. And one quote that I've seen you say a lot is that if you don't work, God don't work. So, I mean, what does that look like? What does that quote mean to you, number one? And what is that build up? How that build up maybe make, because if you weren't ready for it, Drew wouldn't have brought you on. So how were you? What made you ready for it?
Yeah, gosh. Yeah, that quote always gets me, because I'm a very spiritual person and I've had a very tumultuous relationship with God throughout the years, because I felt like I had to do everything on my own and I had to like kill myself to do it. And there was times where I would yell out to him like, why are you doing this to me? Why is this happening to me? Like, screw this, like I'm going to do it. And that quote comes from just my heart and my emotions with my journey, because I don't believe in just this. Like, I don't believe in just prayer. I don't believe in just people saying, oh my God, like I wish I can have this. I wish I can, if I do this, please God, please, please, please. I don't believe in all that. I believe that you're being tested continuously. I believe that you're being watched continuously every single day, and you're living this life, and that's your first gift, and everybody has that gift. But what you do with it is the ultimate test, because everybody has a passion. Everybody has something that they're great at. They just haven't found it yet, or it's just stuck inside them and they don't feel like going after it. So when I say, if you don't work, God don't work, meaning like if you don't work towards your passion every single day, God's not going to like step in with the assist. And I kind of parlay it to basketball, right? So with every bucket, there's an assist. So in order to shoot the game when you shoot the bucket, you got to put the work in, and God's going to kind of realign you with the people that you need to align with. So I really felt like all the work I was putting in, and it led me to Drew. And then Drew gave me an opportunity, and that opportunity I've just kind of seized and maximized the last 7 years with him. If you don't work, God don't work, meaning like every single day you have to work, or else he's not going to come and just give you a little bit of a boost, a little bit of a hit. So
everything about that's awesome. But of course, right, there's going to be those ups and downs. And that's a really positive mindset that I hope a lot of the listeners maybe listen to that and maybe try to adapt it. But I mean, when things aren't going so well, how do you still love your life in that sense, to where you still wake up every day and you're just pumped to be alive?
Oh man. I mean, yeah, everybody deals with burnout, but I will tell you a story. So when I was being like stupidly ignorant of my comments when I realized, but I did take 7 flights in 5 days, but 3 of those flights, I was fortunate enough to be on a private jet. So, I mean, completely ignorant from my perspective of what I'm doing every day. But I had a lot of moments where like, why am I complaining when I get to do this? And I've earned it because I've worked hard. I know I worked hard. So I don't think I'm bigger or better than anybody, but like in perspective, I know people are working 9 to 5 p.m. jobs. And I think there's a stat now where like 70% of people hate their jobs right now in the US. And not saying I'm better than them, but like I am truly humbled by my upbringings. Since I was a janitor, I've been there. I've been in uncertainty. I've been in jobs where I've hated my whole life. So I used to clean toilets for a living. So I just get reminded by the wonderful opportunities I get to do every single day of my life. And I don't take it for granted. I might complain and post my story like, 7 flights in 5 days. But, at the end of the day, like I understand what I get to do is a privilege, and I'm so humble to this day. Trust me, people who know me really well. Like I used to clean toilets and clean tampon dispensaries for a living. So I think that's what motivates me. I always feel like I'm going to end up back there. Drew always reminds me like, listen, you're going to have a job for life, man. Like you don't have to worry. And I just think it just always keeps me going. It keeps me on my edge. It helps remind myself that I can lose it all And I think if you have that mentality, it can help you. Obviously, there's burnout too when it comes to creative stuff too. But I don't know. I've woken up every day and I've opened my computer and I've worked on something. There've been times where I may have needed to take a week break or a couple of days break because I've been editing on a long project for Drew. But I just love it. It's something that I'm going to do for the rest of my life in some capacity.
This sounds like a movie, and it's crazy because it can be broken up into a bunch of small movies. Like, everyone always posts on Instagram, like, oh, like this event, like, my PD Con in Miami is going to be a movie. Like, right. Everyone always says that, but this whole thing sounds like if that's a movie, I would say it's like a trilogy or a series. I don't know what the word is.
It should be a movie because like when I was little, like I would watch Kobe every single day. And I never would have thought that. It's funny because me, Drew, and Jason would be working out every single day at Chaminade High School, where Jason went to school in high school. And there were conversations where me, Jason, and Drew would be like, damn, like, what if we work out with Kobe one day? And it just makes me wonder and laugh because like, is manifestation like real? Does it work? Because in that moment, like it's years before the event happens, but it really does. And it's scary because it doesn't happen overnight. It happens years later. It happens much more later, but all that little work just builds up. I believe in that. I really do. And hopefully once Drew starts writing his books and maybe gets a movie out, I don't know, maybe he can give me a little forward or an after or whatever you call that. And I can kind of piggyback off him and start writing my own book.
Whatever that book is, it's gonna be right on my bookshelf. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that, and it should be coming out soon. Whether if it might maybe as soon as the next year, with how fast things are maybe going. But we've been going into all, and this is great. Like, I'm gonna have a tough time picking out Instagram clips, like the 1 minute clips. I'm gonna have to do some real digging or asking for a lot of opinions on which ones to post because there's only 10. You can only have 10 on Instagram, so I'm gonna make that work. But still, for our listeners, maybe that we still haven't really got into exactly what you do on a day-to-day basis for Drew, for PureSweat. Like, what are your main things now? Maybe have they progressed since you first started?
Oh yeah. So I do his all-around content from his posts, fortunately, I literally picked up the camera, and a lot of people don't understand this, but I was doing video for mostly the last 7 years, and I needed to become a photographer. So I picked up my skills in photography. I learned how to do photos more. And I'm not afraid to say that I wasn't as proficient I was in terms of video and photography. So, but now I can say like I'm at the level where like I can do both. And I love my photography. And now like my video is kind of like getting there. So it's motivation to kind of bring all of them back up. So as far as just being his full-time content creator, I always joke about that sometimes I'm his personal assistant, because if people can't reach Drew, they're usually calling me. And if people need like a favor, they're usually calling me. So I'm always on my phone in terms of like social media, TikTok, growing his TikTok, growing his Instagram. Obviously we have Gymshark now. So we're getting into a lot of branding stuff now. So hopefully that can kind of showcase my abilities more as a creator. So I think in terms of branding, it's going to be to the level of everything that you see Drew post of branding, I'm going to be creating for him. So I really do believe branding is going to be such a huge thing going forward. I know it's been introduced in the last couple of years and people have been doing it, but I think for like the normal people are going to do that more, right? If you're not an influencer, people are trying to become influencers, and people who have a lot of followers, these people, these products, these brand products are going to send it to them as well. So I really do foresee a change in that.
It's exciting stuff, and being at the forefront of this stuff, really starting to this kind of the tipping point of all this happening when it comes to branding is really exciting. Is there a team with you, or do you do this all like, what exactly, is there a team of interns around you? How does all this stuff come to life?
No, during the summer, usually like I'll hire somebody just on my own if I need help. I usually just hire one of my guys. I ran a 30 something person mentorship during COVID, and I was able to meet a lot of creators during Clubhouse. I hopped on there for a excuse me, a couple months during COVID. I don't know if you heard of Clubhouse, but I was
Yeah,
able
I gotta
to.
get on the next mentorship you do. I gotta get on that one. I
Uh,
don't do too much. I'm more of a coach than a trainer, but especially when it comes to content creation, I gotta up my game in that too.
No,
Everything.
yeah, I learned from Drew that maintaining relationships across the country is very difficult, and I got some burnout from that because it was so hard. Because I'm a very passionate person. I gave my all to everybody, so it was very difficult to kind of keep that consistently because it was like the same demographic. A lot of people were unsure, uncertain of going after their goals, didn't have their dream job. So I was like putting forth the effort every day. So it took its toll on me. And unfortunately, I couldn't keep up with it anymore. I remember I was charging $60 a month to like 30 something people. And I just felt like I was stealing their money because like I couldn't be on top of my game. I couldn't be there consistently because I was so burnt out emotionally. So I just kept it as just free, like after about 3 months, because it was just too much. And I thought it was a valuable lesson for me because you can only do so much for a lot of people. And it takes a special person to dedicate that time to truly help a lot of people. But I was able to help people get different jobs and advance in their careers. So it was very rewarding.
It's super fun. And we've been talking so much about content, but I know you, I mean, like, and you're always behind the camera. And that's why I'm excited we're doing this interview because you're in front
Yeah.
of the camera now. But you've been in the front of the camera other times. I mean, I've seen you go in front of the camera, and whether it's bust out a little bit of training, stuff like that. Like, what does that look like for you whenever you get in front of the camera? How does that play out?
I mean, I will always choose being behind the camera because I think that's where my best work comes. But I mean, right now this is Drew's time. Right now, my job is to help Drew become who he is. And I know if I stay patient and that if I remain loyal, I know good things will only come my way. That's how it's always been. Like if I remain loyal and I keep working hard and keep being and doing my job, I know other people will look after me. Hence Drew Hanlon or hence anybody else. So whether it's me writing a book, whether it's me being on more camera, whether I start training more and more NBA players, like a lot of people don't realize, like I do train NBA players, but majority of those NBA players become like my best friends. So it just becomes convenient at that point. I know everything that Drew knows. So if some of those NBA guys can't get in the gym with Drew, like they just kind of go to me because I'm like, I know all the curriculum, I can do all the moves, but it's just, I'm kind of just I'm patient. I've learned that patience is so important.
And this whole idea of, I mean, this network that's kind of been built up, this whole PureSweat fam. Can you talk a little about that and maybe how that's grown since the last few years? I mean, I remember I went to the last TPG Scout School, and now, I mean, right, like PureSweat now owns that, and they're doing all these cool events for things outside of training. Can you talk a little about that and maybe what that looks like for the PureSweat fam just growing and being such an intertwined network?
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with the culture the culture that Drew has, created and cultivated, and myself included. When the players, enter the gym, we want them to feel like they are just at home. It's a home away from home. When they go in the gym, yes, I'm recording, but they know it's me. It's always been me for the last 7 years. So they know I'm very delicate, particulate with the content I throw out there. I mean, I have some shit on there that any other content creator would be begging to post it and growing their I only have 15,000 followers. Okay, yeah, it's a lot to some people, but to me it's not because Drew says all the time he only has like 217,000 followers, but Drew could have 1 million. I could have way more, but me and Drew just are on the same level that we understand like, hey, these are these guys' lives. We don't want to post anything that makes anybody look bad. So there will be a time and a place where it comes to maybe I might just offload all this content after all these guys are done with their career and I gain tons and tons and thousands of followers. But right now I think it's just a principle and people just understand like we are literally trying to protect our guys. So I think that's what is the culture that's kind of formulated with those beliefs. But as far as the TPG events, TPG, right? I don't know if I said it wrong, but
Yeah.
those will continue to grow. And, Drew really wants to help trainers because as you can see at the Master Hoops Classic or is it Master Hoops? Is it
Master
Classic?
Hoops Player Development Conference. PPD Con was the coolest way to say it.
Yeah, but I mean, that was an awesome event. But as you saw, like a lot of those skills trainers couldn't even do a left-handed layup. So I think it puts a lot of things in perspective of where training is. And Drew really cares about like people teaching the game the right way.
Definitely, that's so important. There's so many avenues that Drew's allowed for that growth to happen. And one of them, most recent, was the player development conference that Coleman and put together with Master Hoops, and it was awesome. But there's a bunch of other events coming up, right? I mean, I know there's the Connecticut coming up. I really want to go to Vegas because it's right before the G League showcase. But finals, I got to talk to some professors and get exemption.
There's event. It's called the retreat. So I mean, honestly, it's a wake up, because when these trainers, it's honestly, I'm very biased, right? I'm not trying to sell, but it literally is a wake up call, because Drew is literally there. He's in the trenches with you. He's teaching you nonstop for a couple of days. You're literally gathering all his knowledge, grasping all his knowledge. There's sit down stuff. There's seminars. There's on the court, which is the most important thing. My biggest thing, like, if you can't do the moves or know how it should look, then you shouldn't be trained. So it's an eye-opening experience. And the retreat, as so-called the name of it, but I would recommend it to anybody, because it's such an experience that it makes you understand little details of, okay, yeah, I want to be a skills trainer, but I can't even do certain things. So it doesn't make sense for me to teach this if I can't even do it right, or I can't do it properly to an NBA player, So I think that's the biggest thing you get out of is all these little details, being a good a good skills coach, NBA, high school, youth, whatever level, girls coach. So I'm very excited about that event coming up. I think it's pretty much almost halfway full, but I'm excited. I love doing those things because I always end up talking to the other skills trainers and developing even more relationships.
I mean, once you see Drew do it in a boot, that's really a wake-up call. Like, damn, I got to really up my game now.
Yeah.
I was doing it in a full boot. That was definitely that was one of the best parts of the whole thing. And he was, I mean, like the stuff I learned from that was incredible. And that wasn't even the super tight retreat kind of format, which I'm sure there's just so much to learn from there. Before we wrap, though, I need to ask you, because by the time this episode posts, you might already go on like 4 or 5 flights. So what's coming up for you? Like, what's coming up for you maybe in the next 2 weeks?
Shit. Okay. Well, okay. So I am going we had the last Gymshark clinic in LA on Sunday, which is tomorrow. From Sunday, I will leave Sunday night to Philly. I'll spend a couple of days in Philly. I'm going to help out a couple of Philly trainers who are some of Drew's in the menteeship. So I just like helping people. So I'll be in Philly for a little bit. Unfortunately, the Sixers don't get back until Friday for a home game, but I'll be flying to Chicago on Friday for opening day for the Bulls to see Zach. And one of our good friends, Satchel, he has some people within the Bulls organization, so I'll be able to go with him and his family and stuff. It'll be really fun to see Zach play. I'm excited to see the Bulls this year, man. I'm really excited for Zach, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see what he does with all that talent around him. So now he doesn't have to worry as much. Now he's got to put things together and be a scorer and be a leader and produce wins, So from there, I will go back from Chicago. I'll go to Nashville that Saturday for another clinic for Drew. And I think after that, I have no idea.
That's what makes it fun. And I mean, it really is a movie. Thank you so much for coming on the show, because your whole story is incredible, but the lessons that you've taken from it are just really what blew me away. I mean, what actually happened is incredible, but just the meaning behind it all is what really makes it all so worthwhile. I'm really excited to have for listeners to take this show. I'm expecting a lot of texts of people saying like, dude, I learned so much, or Sam's so inspirational, or stuff like that. And really appreciate you coming on, taking the time and sharing that.
For sure, man. I really appreciate you having me on too. And I think what you're doing is great. I think your separator is just having those socks ready,
Thanks for listening to Gen Z Hoops. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe on Instagram, LinkedIn, and all major social media platforms at Gen Z Hoops. You can tune in and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and every other podcast platform on the planet. Get ready for the next episode.